This is not a review. Feature Focus is a video series based on a specific feature or set of features in a game that I like, how those features work, and what makes them special. This time, I'm talking about morality in Winter City Builder survival game, Frostpunk. It is uncommon in strategy games to care about individual units. Such is the plight of the solo Marine Scout in StarCraft, with not a second thought being given to his well-being. Frostpunk sets out to be different, and to be perfectly honest, that's what attracted me to the game in the first place. 11-Bit Studios made a bit of a different strategy game by combining the genre with a few things that they showed could be successful in their other game, This War of Mine. Frostpunk is a city builder, but unlike most, which are geared towards a map domination attitude, this one's based on survival. You are the city's commander. You're able to place buildings and roads in order to help your citizens survive the extreme cold as they construct New London, one of humanity's last attempts at rebuilding after perpetual winter takes hold, but that isn't where the game ends, only where it begins. You're also in full control of your city's heat source, a generator at the center of a crater in the ice. That crater not only provides limited resources for much of the game, but also a limited build area that will force many gamers out of the more traditional expand to succeed mentality. As I mentioned though, I want to talk about morality because that is the strong suit of this game and, dare I say, what feels like its entire purpose. As the city commander, your task is the survival of everyone, but with limited resources, often difficult decisions will have to be made. I'll break this down into the Book of Laws feature, local events in the crater, and remote events in the world around you. The Book of Laws is the real centerpiece of the whole experience and is a kind of talent tree with various branches and more extreme laws locked behind earlier, less extreme ones. In fact, you can only see what the very next tier will do, with further branches only being visible by name, which keeps some of the mystique. With citizens freezing to death in the cold, starving, or being injured in workplace accidents, sometimes you as the leader have to ask just a little bit more of the populace, all the while keeping their hopes high and discontent low. You can sign laws which affect the day-to-day life in the crater in a variety of ways. One of the most known examples, which has been discussed by the developers and media before now, is a law adding children as part of your workforce. If this law is signed, it will have a negative effect on your citizens as they disagree with your decision. But by the same token, a positive effect because more work can be done, more coal mined, more wood gathered. It's also actually separated into a couple of laws, with only safe jobs being enabled to begin with, and dangerous jobs added if you keep going down that part of the tree. You can choose to feed your citizens regular rations, or sign a law stretching the rations out by using soup instead. Or add a sawdust filler which will keep them satisfied but make them more prone to illness. You can sign a law which lets you build a fighting pit, a tavern of sorts, or a pleasure house, giving citizens an outlet to relax. While I don't want to go down the list and spoil every possible law, some of them really make you stop and think, from the perspective of a leader of a city. What is ethical to do here? Some are incredibly useful and others perhaps a bit more valuable as a role-playing device. In my mind, the most useful early game law, which I use almost immediately, is the 24-hour workday. This lets you force a single workplace to go for 24 hours straight, which is fantastic from a productivity standpoint, but really upsets the populace when you actually use it. In the late game, you might have enough tools to be able to manage 6 or 7 24-hour workplaces on rotation, but not early on. And the first time a citizen dies from overworking directly because of that decision you made, it hits pretty hard. The game is extremely bleak, and that's clearly by design, even going as far as to let you know how many disabled citizens had frostbite-related amputations. The game passes days slowly, though you can speed up or pause time as you choose, taking about 40 days for the main scenario to play itself out. Around the mid-teens for days past, the game gives you a choice. Do you go down the road of faith, or do you go down the road of order? Each choice opens up a new and potentially more extreme talent tree than the main one, where you can go full-blown dictator or religious oligarch, and this, for me, was where the game took a real turn. I've been through the initial scenario twice from start to finish, and was able to both take full advantage of the talent tree from an efficiency standpoint, becoming a terrifyingly forceful leader, but also a relatively benevolent one by being very particular about the ethics of each law that I signed. I won't say that the game punishes ethical behavior, but it is certainly an easier experience if you can simply not care about making morally right choices for your citizens. There's a law you can sign at the end of either the faith or order trees which will completely negate whether or not the hope meter of your citizens matter, and that's a heavy one to sign. The music changes, the morning and evening announcements that the workday has begun or ended change. And really, 11-bit did an excellent job of making it clear that your choice was a decisive but dangerous road to travel.
Work shift begins. May Lord preserve our great leader.
The last word I want to have on the Book of Laws is that the game initially only has one available scenario, to build a city and survive. There are also two other scenarios, one where the goal is to maintain a minimum temperature in several key buildings, preserving seeds for the future, and the other where you're tasked with managing a refugee crisis. It changes the events and resource levels of the main game, but also gives you access to both the Order and Faith Books of Law as a single talent tree called Purpose. This adds a fair bit of variety in that you can now take advantage of the best or worst parts of each. I think this is important because it gives the players who want a more ethical path more options in the laws that they sign, because the overall direction of those talent trees does trend towards the oppressive. Now, as I mentioned, there are two other morality-related aspects to the game. While they're nowhere near as important as the Book of Laws, I do think they each deserve a mention. Periodically, events will pop up as little notices somewhere in your city. These can be anything from a parent preparing to leave to search for a lost child, where you can stop them, equip them for the journey, or simply ignore the event, all the way up to a riot in your city with the city guards itching to try out their batons, and the only thing stopping them is your word. Each of these events will have some kind of effect on the city through the discontent and hope meters, as well as in some cases gaining or losing resources and people. If you equip that father for the journey to look for his lost daughter, you may gain a citizen when he successfully returns with her. But if you ignore him, chances are he's lost to the snow. You could send the city guard to disperse the riot, but some citizens may die, which you notice immediately as several of your workplaces now have to get new citizens allocated to work there. The events are interesting, and while there are some superfluous ones occasionally, they give a bit of extra life to the goings-on in the crater. The other type of event occurs outside of your city walls. You can create scouts who roam the world around your city exploring different locations. These aren't separate areas, which I admit was a little disappointing, but rather text-based events with a choice attached. For example, you may find a group of children freezing in a cave, and you can choose to escort them to the city, tell them where it is and wish them luck, or leave them. The difference between these overworld events and the local ones is that they don't affect the mood of your city, because your citizens will never find out that you left those kids to freeze in the wild, knowing that you didn't have enough food at your city to be able to feed them. Some of the little events are simply resource gathering ones, but others involve choices like this, which gave me real pause as I had to think through not just the in-game consequences, but how vicious some of the options really were. I do think that there's some room for improvement, but for the most part, it's really only in the realm of variety. It seems to me that providing options for using substandard housing materials with an added potential of catastrophic failure would have been great. When I chose the fighting pit, I didn't get any events later on of people protesting it, which felt a little odd. It doesn't feel rushed at all, but that doesn't mean the devs can't add more of this style of content going forward, and I would encourage them to take full advantage of the Coming Soon banner beneath the existing 3 scenarios that you can play in Frostpunk, to add more laws to sign, more local events, and more overworld events. I would also encourage them to make damn sure this game is moddable, because I think the community would be able to expand upon its ideas even further. When a game tries to tackle ethics, I usually find that the attempt is lacking any real humanity or consequence. Mass Effect-style paladin good, emo evil options have no impact most of the time. Fallout 4 decisions seem to be missing the emotion, though whether that's through poor writing or animation quality is debatable at times. What Frostpunk does really well is give a certain gravitas to your decisions. You don't get the accolades other games will give you when you do something good enough, and the weight of some of the more negative decisions can be quite visceral at times. The game shows you visually through faithful banners hung from the generator or the spotlights from guard towers monitoring the populace exactly what kind of leader you are. It tells you through audio cues, the murmur of the crowd as they spend their free time in the evening, the slowly changing bellow of the foghorn when it's time to get to work. At the end of it all, I feel that Frostpunk deals with morality very well, and as something of a pragmatist, it almost rewards immoral behavior with efficiency, assuming that you as the player can willingly be a terrible person. Not many games show the dark side of humanity in this way, how people might act when absolute survival is on the line. And all I can say is that what initially attracted me to Frostpunk was exactly what I expected and hoped that it would be. Feature Focus is a video series designed to replace more traditional game reviews for me. I deal in news and editorial content that results in very negative topics often enough, and I needed a series where I could just talk about positive things for a while. As a result, if I do one of these videos on a game, I would also gladly recommend that game for you to buy. It's important to me to make sure I'm providing some kind of value, not just parroting things other people have said. I love engaging in discussion on games like this, and would appreciate any help you can give me in sharing my videos around. My name is Tarmack. Thanks very much for watching.